Hey guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. My nickname is iFacePalm, and in this episode we're going to take a closer look at the American T8 Premium Astron Rex medium tank, which features a surprisingly deadly auto-loader gun. And during this tank review we'll be looking into whether if it's worth picking up from the premium shop, how its tank statistics looks. I'll compare its stats against several other premium and non-premium T8 medium and heavy tanks, which will be followed up with a quick armor profile rundown with focus on its weak spots and strengths. And afterwards I will take you guys alongside a couple of not surprisingly very recent battles, which hopefully will give you guys a good idea of this quite interesting medium tank in action. And finally, I will finish up with a quick sum up and my rating of this new tank. Okay guys, let's get started. Okay, so what is this Astron Rex all about, and what makes this tank unique? Because one thing is for certain, it is not like we are lacking more premium medium tanks in the game. Well, for a starter, my initial thought when I for the very first time took a look at its statistics was that it looked like a little brother of the tier 9 Char Futur, as this medium tank features an impressive magazine of 5 shells alongside a very good alpha damage for a medium tank in this tier. I have definitely noticed a trend recently where Wargaming has during this year introduced various auto-loader tanks that seems to often be balanced by having very slow intra-clip reload speed, and this we definitely also see here. Furthermore, it seems that right off the bat that this American premium tank has not only received a significant penalty to its intra-clip reload speed, but also its gun dispersion. And you might think that this uniqueness stop here, but not so fast, because this little American tank got a few other tricks hidden under its sleeve, like insane hull traverse speed alongside a stunning reverse speed, and therefore this tank is capable of offering various dilemmas and trade-offs, which definitely can be a bit tricky to figure out on how to best utilize this particular tank. And last and not least, this of course leaves us with the final question, whether this premium tank is any good, and if so, can it really be compared against the best T8 mediums currently in the game? Well, let's take a look by doing a quick stats rundown with my current crew and tank setup. So starting out with the crew, the new Astron Rex unfortunately only features 3 crew members. This is a bit of shame, to be honest, because I really like to use these premium tanks as a crew trainer, in addition of course earning those extra credits. But nevertheless, this also means that our commander takes the role of also being a radio operator alongside a loader. And not only that, the gunner himself, he actually also shares the loader role in addition and leaves the driver focus on driving. So at least it is quite well split up in my opinion. Of course the commander will be a bit challenging, but I like that the driver does not have any other roles, because the driver definitely takes big advantage of having him well skilled up in his initial base skills. Regarding the focus areas, nothing out of the ordinary. Brothers in arms, focus on view range and gun handling skills together with camouflage, and for the driver in particular, he's gone with smooth ride, off-road driving, concealment, and now focuses on clutch braking. I must say that the clutch braking is really not needed for this particular tank. And for the equipment, I have 2 different setups. One of them is for random games and another is for skirmish battles. For the random games, I've chosen to go for an improved rotation mechanism, bounty stabilizer, and a bounty ventilation. And this all goes towards improving its gun handling, because that is going to be a slight challenge, say it mildly. But for when I play skirmish, it is slightly different, but the rotation mechanism has been exchanged with a turbocharger instead. We'll of course go into more details why I've selected the following during the tank rundown. And for the ammunition, I've selected to go for 20 AP shells and 10 APCR, but keep in mind this is in my loadout 1, that means whenever I'm top tier and facing very low tiers that this can be utilized. But I must say that this is one of those premiums that is best utilized going full gold. So to be honest, I'm using primary my alternative ammunition fit that features 30 APCR rounds instead. Nevertheless, each shell is capable of delivering 320 alpha damage, which is quite stunning, I must say. There are not many medium tanks that are capable of delivering this impressive alpha damage. So this part here is definitely a big highlight. But not only that, the average penetration, we are looking at 190 millimeters. It is okay, but nothing out of the ordinary. And yes, of course, if you want to use this tank to earn credits with, I will of course highly recommend to go primary for the AP rounds. But to use it in any competitive matter, there is really no option here in my opinion, but going for full APCR rounds. The shell velocity on the standard rounds is also very mediocre at 945. It's honestly slightly painful at times. Of course, if you bring it very close up and personal, it doesn't matter, but of course the matchmaker does not always allow you to do so. Then therefore of course we got the nice APCR rounds, which receives that awesome average penetration boost of extra 60 millimeters, which now totals 250 millimeter, which is definitely an acceptable number for its tier, alongside a quite decent shell velocity boost of 1181. So there is a significant difference between the standard AP rounds and the APCR rounds. In my opinion, even those shells cost 4,800 gold, I still think to utilize this tank in most scenarios, the APCR are more or less a must. Alternatively, you could of course go for 10-20, but the problem is that you maximum can have 30 shells. And this of course also means that for the high explosives which are capable of dealing an average damage of 420 alpha damage with an average penetration of 553, then yes, we have absolutely no room for these. And this of course also means that my alternative setup, which we can see right here, is of course 0-30. And when we move over to the consumables, is of course the small repair kit, small first aid kit, and a case of cola. And when we take a look at the field modifications, I've chosen to go for light alloy mounting points that gives us that extra hull traverse and gun traverse speed. For the next modification, I have suspension arm tuning that gives us that extra dispersion during movement and hull traverse. And this is simply because I play this tank quite aggressive. And last, I've selected 3% extra concealment. And for the last field modification, we have the second slot category, which I have chosen to go for scouting. But I must say, I'm not really utilizing this benefit because as I have chosen to go full focus towards improving its gun handling on the move, and therefore neither the scouting or survivability category fits for my playstyle. So we had an average damage of 320 with a standard average penetration of 190, a rate of fire of 6.48, which translates to, yes, it's a bit tricky here because this tank, it features an auto loader with 5 shells, and this particular gun is quite unique because not only it has 5 shots, and that is for a medium tank, but it features a 4-second intra-clip reload speed, which is the exact same like on, for example, the tier 9 Char Futur. But the thing is that this tank only features a complete magazine reload time of 30.27 seconds. Yes, we're receiving a few bonuses due to the premium consumables and the bounty ventilation and the brothers and arms, but nevertheless, it is not crazy. So directly right off the bat, when I saw this tank, I was like, okay, I'm going to play it like a Char Futur, because why not? Suddenly we have a tier 8 mini Char Futur that can be utilized in a similar way. But a quick spoiler, guys, it really didn't turn out to be the exact mini Char Futur. But let's continue, and here we have of course the gun traverse speed of 59.17. That's just nuts if you ask me. This is crazy. Furthermore, we have a beautiful gun depression of -10 degrees, and not only that, an aiming time of 1.74 seconds, which definitely looks good. But of course, as this is an autoloader, what really can become vital is what is its penalty after firing a shell, because the initial aiming time might seem very good, but if the gun firing penalty outweighs this, then the initial aiming time will be rendered obsolete. But of course, we're going to take a look at that in the tank comparison. For the gun dispersion, 0.38. Yes, this is a bit painful. And of course, we're receiving that penalty due to the suspension arm tuning modification, which of course can be slightly modified if you choose to play this tank as a long-range sniper. But personally, as I play this tank more close to mid-range, then I've gone full focus towards improving the gun handling on the move. And when we take a look at the average damage per minute, it's actually very decent for a medium tank that has an autoloader. 2075 is really a decent number for an autoloader. And we take a look at the HP pool, 1300, which is quite average for a medium tank. And for the hull armor, we have 85, 70, 50, and of course for turret armor, 220, 175. Of course, we're going to take a look at this in the armor profile rundown, as there will be actually a few small surprises. But of course, what is not going to surprise us is this gigantic cupola, yeah, which is of immense size. And therefore, at least for me, it's kind of pointless of focusing on how good the turret armor is, because this cupola is seriously hard to hide. And when taking a look at the mobility figures, we have the horsepower per ton of 14.75, together with a top speed of 52 an hour and a reverse speed of 28. That's including the -2 we received due to the field modification, which is quite insane reverse speed if you ask me. The initial horsepower per ton, 14.75, definitely nothing out of the ordinary, and it will all depend on the hidden ground resistance. But in general, yes, this tank definitely can take big advantage of the turbocharger, which we saw I fitted for the skirmish battles. Because if you're driving alongside a projector, a barrage in skirmish, then you will be lagging behind. And fitting this module really seems like a must for skirmish battles. But for random games, then I personally take way big advantage of having it fully focused towards being able to make those snapshots. And for the traverse speed, check this one, guys. 89.63. This is just nuts. And not only that, of course, the improved rotation mechanism is unfortunately adding 9.45 degrees. They have the case of cola adding, of course, and that it is just nuts, guys. 89.63 degrees traverse speed. It is too much in my opinion. And for the camera figures, we have 32 and 26%. And keep in mind, we are receiving those extra 3% due to the field modification. The camera rating itself, it looks quite good now, but if you choose the other option, then keep in mind this is going to be 6% difference. So we're going to have 26 only here and around 20% when moving. And this figure will get you easily spotted in many map locations. And for the last figure, we have the view range of 454 millimeters. But of course, keep in mind that we are using the premium consumables, and we are in addition using the bounty ventilation. So if you are not fitting this tank with upgrade upgraded equipment or premium consumables, then I can highly recommend to, for example, switch the improved rotation mechanism with the coated optics, or alternatively the bouncy ventilation. Okay guys, let's continue taking a look at the tank comparison. And for this particular one, I have included quite a few extra tanks because I really felt that it is important to make a point of exactly how the Astron Rex can or maybe should be played and how it compares against some of the other tanks that are capable of dealing those 320 alpha damage. Like for example, CS52 list and the Object 2748, which shares that alpha damage but are very different in playstyle. Furthermore, I have selected to compare it against the Lorraine 40T, which also features an autoloader system, alongside two other French heavy tanks, the MX 5100 and the Somua SM. And last, for the fourth French tank is of course the Char Futur. Okay guys, so let's take a look at the firepower. The DPM 1920 as a base, it places us around the middle. But of course it can be a bit tricky regarding how to exactly compare it, because this tank is an autoloader, and in general we know that autoloaders are usually heavily penalized on the DPM due to that autoloader magazine, which we can see here in the Lorraine 40T, the MX 5100 and even the Char Futur, which is a tier 9 medium tank. But for the Astron Rex it is quite different, because 1920, yes, it's not best in class, but it's really not far away from the Polish CS52 list. And for the penetration value of the standard 190, yes, it is really not good. It definitely shows that Wargaming really wants you to play it only in one certain way, and that is of course firing the premium ammo, because in this comparison it is definitely by far the worst. And when we take a look at the shell velocity of 945, then again we are at the bottom scale. But of course, how does it look if we change to the premium rounds? Well, let's take a look guys, and there we go. And keep in mind guys that all of these tanks uses APCR rounds as premium, besides the Char Futur that used the APCR rounds as standard and are now using heat shells. So for the penetration at 250, while I find it quite acceptable for a medium tank premium round, then it again places us at the bottom. Yes, it is not far away from the CS52 list, and some of the other figures we can see here is not really staggering and rarely enough to make a bigger difference. Besides of course the Soviet 2748, which features some insane medium tank penetration, alongside of course the Char Futur with its heat shells. So again in the bottom, but not as severely. And looking at the shell velocity, then it definitely has received a buff, but it seems like this tank has deliberately received that slight nerf in comparison to its counterparts. So both for the DPM and penetration we are at the low range, but how does it look for damage? Well, the alpha damage was 320, and we directly see here that a lot of these tanks has the 300 damage mark in common. And the main reason for why I've included the CS52 list and the 2748, which are not an autoloader, is regarding showcasing the opportunity to play this tank in the role of a single shooter tank because of its intra-clip reload speed. So the alpha damage here at T8 is very much equal with only minor differences. And of course, what is important and very interesting to see, how many clips do we have in the magazine, potential damages, and how fast can we deliver this damage. And when looking at the clip damage of the Astron Rex of 1600, it is just insane if you ask me, because if you're capable of landing all your shots, you will be able to take out the majority of T8 tanks in either 12 to 16 seconds. But of course 16 seconds, that is quite a lot, because looking at the Lorraine 40T 1200 in just 7.5 seconds, this is crazy difference. That is all based of course on the intra-clip reload speed, but the difference between 2.5 seconds and 4 seconds, it is really immense. This of course we see it also on the MX 5100, which in general is quite slow of dishing out its 1800 clip damage in 13.64 seconds. So definitely these 16 seconds is by far the worst. And even when looking at the Somua, which can deliver nearly the exact same clip damage, but 7 seconds faster, that is a crazy difference. And not only that, when we compare it against the Char Futur, which features near to the same clip damage potential, it can deliver it in 12 seconds. So even if you find your Char Futur to be delivering its damage quite sluggish, then yes, the Astron Rex takes this part to another level. And I must say that right off the bat, this seems like a big no-go, because having this intra-clip reload speed of 4 seconds, that means if you're using it primary from long to mid-range, you will very often see that as soon as you fire your one shot, the enemy is going to reverse and hide away or seek cover behind a rock or building. And where I don't mind it so much with the Char Futur, because it can deliver the 390 alpha damage versus the 320, because even the difference only counts 70 damage difference, it really matters quite a lot on the battlefield, where a 390 alpha damage shot can definitely be felt by the enemy, but where a 320 is somewhere in between. Not only that, when we take a look at the ammo capacity of only 30 and compare it against all of the other tanks, then again we see another problem become apparent very quickly. In my opinion, at least for the firepower, it just looks like Wargaming look at the average stats for various tanks and then it nerfed it slightly in every category to be able to give it that 5-shot autoloader alongside a gigantic cupola. So right off the bat, when I was looking at these stats for the very first time, I seriously had mixed feelings. So is it all bad? Well, it depends on a lot of factors, which hopefully will become more apparent as we're going through tank statistics. For the gun handling, the Astron Rex had an aiming time of 2 seconds, which is quite impressive and definitely the best in class in this comparison. But of course, keep in mind that the aim time, especially for an autoloader, is quite tricky, because what you really want to look at is of course what the penalty is after firing, and here we have a penalty of 4, which in general is quite common for all of these T8 tanks. But where, for example, the Lorraine 40T with its faster intra-clip reload speed of 2.5 seconds, or the MX-5100 or the Somua SM with 2.25 will have a challenge to get the second shell fully aimed, then the Astron Rex does not seem to be affected by this penalty due to it already has an intra-clip reload speed of 4 seconds. For the gun dispersion, 0.43, this is definitely by far the worst here. There's no doubt about it that this 0.43 is a major factor that Wargaming has added to not make this tank overpowered. But then again, it really opens up for if Wargaming knows that this tank will be overpowered by having a good gun dispersion alongside its hidden gun handling statistics, then is there any way I can modify the number that they chose to primary balance this tank by, besides of course the intra-clip reload speed? And this is why I have chosen to go for improving these hidden gun handling statistics, because when moving 0.18, it is not good, but it's not bad. It is manageable. Of course, the single shooter CS52 list is of course the best in class because it just has epic gun handling figures. But for the penalties for both the tank traverse and the turret traverse are actually not bad at all. Having a reload time of 4 seconds for all of those 4 extra shells made me think about that this tank, it is just a big shame if we're going to utilize this as a sniper. Because first of all, 0.43 sniping from the very back, yes, we can get this figure down to maybe 0.37, 0.36 with all of the buffs possible, but is it really what I want to specialize this tank on? And yes, I tried the jiggle setup and it just felt like a big shame to use it as that. And to be honest, the various trade-offs here for the Astron Rex versus the Object 274, I actually personally prefer these figures here by starting out with a poor dispersion and getting the gun handling figures in control, rather than the opposite variant where the Object 274A receives a buff to its dispersion in comparison and then getting severe heavy tank penalties on top. I personally believe that the Astron Rex, when used in close to mid-range combat, is simply stunning, because 320 alpha damage, if you can deliver that 2 or 3 times during 8 seconds, that is simply deadly at this tier. And not only that, the gun depression of 10 degrees, that makes this tank capable of making those snapshots way more easier. It makes this tank fully capable of fighting on those ridge lines, because when you play that aggressively, you will very often be able to put in 2 or maybe even 3 of your shots onto the enemy for every single attempt that goes towards your tank. And when taking a look at the mobility, we had the forward speed of 52 an hour, which definitely is decent, places us around the middle in this comparison. And when taking a look at the reverse speed, 30 an hour, which is by far the best in class. This is quite insane reverse speed. The only big downside for this particular tank in regards to mobility is the power to weight ratio of 14.52, which we directly can see here, it's really not fast. It is strangely closer to the Somua SM's horsepower per ton. But of course, horsepower per ton does not matter in this game. What matters of course is the terrain resistances of 0.7, 0.8 and 1.5 for soft terrain, which are luckily very similar to the CS52 list. Plus we can directly see here that many of the other tanks have been severely punished by having that extra horsepower per ton, because their terrain resistances are so utterly horrible. So it makes those 17.26 horsepower feel more sluggish than the 14.52. So in general, the terrain resistance are quite good, but even they're quite good, the lack of horsepower per ton is definitely going to affect the amount of time that will take you to achieve your top speed. And this is also why for skirmish battles I feel that it's necessary to have that turbocharger to improve that power to weight ratio, so you can drive nearly alongside other fast medium tanks. Because even with the turbocharger, it's still lacking slightly behind. And take a look at the armor and health, then right off the bat the hull armor doesn't look anything special, but what looks special is of course the turret armor of 220. Yes, that looks amazing on this one, but of course we're going to take a look at this in the armor profile rundown, because yes, we know it has a cupola in the top. What of course is a bit interesting is of course its HP pool of 1300, which places us around the middle for the medium tank category. The 2 heavy tanks that we have in this comparison have not surprisingly more HP, and of course the Char Futur, since it's a tier 9, is the king here. But when purely looking at the medium tank category, the 1300 is nothing special, but not horrible, as we for example see on the Object 274A. And for the last figures, we had camo when stationary of 14 and when moving of 10%, which again places us around the middle in the medium tank category. And yes, do notice that both the Object 274A and the list has better camouflage figures, and yes, every single percentage here definitely counts and will make a bigger difference after you received all your tank and crew bonuses bonuses, but it is a number that is manageable, especially now that you can boost it with those extra 3% with your field modification by sacrificing a bit of this insane reverse speed. And for the last figure, we have the base view range of 390, which definitely places us in the very top together with the Object 2748, which is a very decent number and makes it capable for us to reach a proper view range when using premium consumables alongside the ventilation equipment. Okay guys, so let's continue by taking a look at the armor profile. Okay guys, so here we have the armor profile of the ASTRON Rex, and for this comparison we're going to use the standard 190mm AP rounds, and let's take a look how it looks in the live view. There we go. And yes, right off the bat it looks kind of mixed, I must say, because yes, not surprisingly, this cupola, which is nearly just as big as the turret, definitely is green, so there's no surprises here. In some way it's maybe like even tricky not to hit it, but for the turret itself it's actually quite impressive. 230mm to around 150mm. So the turret armor seems overall quite good. Similar situation on the other side with 232, 220mm, 243, and at the edges 270mm, 270, 287, and of course with some extreme values at the very edges. But what is a bit surprising here is of course that the upper plate seems to be quite easily penetratable, because this 85mm of impacted armor definitely is nothing special. But where this part is nothing special, but the lower plate actually features an impacted armor of 130mm. So yes, if you can bait your enemy to actually shoot at the lower plate rather than the upper plate, then you actually stand a proper chance to bounce the shells. And this is when it's unangled. What most likely no one is going to shoot that at you unless you are one of the lucky few that are facing some poor tier 6 vehicles. So of course let's try to change this to the 250mm APCR rounds. And how does this look? There we go. And here we directly see some difference, as suddenly the success chance ranges between 45%, 57 to around 60%. So if you are fighting this tank and you are unable to hit this cupola, then if you fire close to the gun mantle on its either left or right side, you will stand a good chance to penetrate. But if your shell goes slightly to the edges here, then we directly see here that the rounds will directly auto bounce both on the left and of course on its right side. And when using the premium rounds for the upper plate, then we are at around 100% chance to penetrate, and similar we see on the lower plate where the chances to penetrate it is around 95%. And the other part I want to mention guys, if we zoom slightly out here and we see this tank from very far away, you might hit the upper part of the gun mantle where it hits the impacted armor 55mm, and that will more often than not result in an auto ricochet. And directly on its right side we have an effective armor of around 250, and with the same story on the left side. The question of course becomes, what about if we utilize those amazing 10 degrees of gun depression? Well, let's take a look. So there we go, and let's see how this looks. Yeah, because if you are capable of fully utilizing your 10 degrees of gun depression, then you are seriously going to give the enemy a hard time if they for some reason cannot see this cupola. Yes, from very long range of course it can be tricky to hit it, but then again sometimes, because it really leaves it up to the RNG. The cupola is near to impossible to hide, but of course from very long range of course can be tricky to hit, because if you are capable of hiding the cupola behind a building or making it very hard for your enemy to hit the target while you move back, forth, left and right, then you can definitely be capable of bouncing quite a lot of shells in this medium tank. So this medium tank definitely has some surprises, that is for certain, both in regards of that the lower plate armor is thicker than the upper plate armor, but also how well the turret is overall. And if we try to utilize this tank from a ridge line, we try to side scrape, then definitely do notice that this tank will become, in regards of the side scraping, is going to give you a gigantic challenge, because as you notice this very round turret is way bigger than the tank hull. And this also means that even despite all of the armor is good, if you show the side, then definitely you can be penned here like nothing. You can see this is the same case where always this part here will be easily penetratable, because at this stage here where we have an extreme 70% angle, then this particular part here definitely doesn't receive any buffs. The thing is that when looking at this armor profile, you might see, okay, this tank cannot side scrape, because of course the enemy is just going to shoot this part, but not so fast, because this tank is really like big mess, both regarding the good parts and the bad parts. Because even you think, okay, this cannot side scrape because you have a weak spot, but check this here guys, when we take a look back on the visual view, then suddenly the weak spot we were talking about, which is around here, is not that easy to hit, because if our shell goes slightly downward, it is either going to ricochet or alternatively absorb. Hitting this particular part when the tank is moving in all directions can be extremely challenging, because it's not very many millimeters. Your shell has to move slightly upwards or downwards to give you a proper chance to bounce the shell. And looking at this tank from very far range, yes, the cupola is still visible, but if there's something that this tank particularly features, is definitely the tank and turret traverse speed for making it as tough as possible for your opponent to hit this particular part. It's not an armor I can trust, but I can at least trust it, that if I do my very best to make it as hard for my opponent to hit all of the various weak spots, then this tank is quite surprisingly reliably bouncing several shells every game. And last to mention, you can see here approximately how much you need to angle it before you start to give the enemy a hard time to bounce this. The because your track traverse is so fast, you are actually capable of changing the track traverse angle very often in time to exactly bait your enemy to hit that lower plate. So if you're fighting a tank commander who does not know about this mix-up between the upper plate and the lower plate and does not know how quickly this tank can traverse, then you can really become a smaller frustration for the enemy tank commander. Nevertheless, let's take a look at its side profile. And here, not surprisingly, it features armor values of 100mm, 923, 45, and just below mixed values of around 200mm, 120, and 133. Of course, it has this special line here that goes through the whole tank, which we can see here. This very flat part here. So as on many other tanks, just shoot it somewhere between mid and rear part of the tank. And looking at the hull, we have values of around 72mm, with a few exceptions of 95mm wherever the track meets. And for the rear, then it looks like two eyes that are looking at me. I don't know how I should feel about it. Besides that, 83mm, 75mm, and the rear turret is definitely mixed with various figures that is primarily best armored on the left side part rather than the right side, but still not anywhere near enough to have a chance to ricochet. And that is of course the same when we change to the 190mm AP rounds, where again we're 100% certain to penetrate, but of course with a few exceptions on the very sides. And for the very lowest part, we have values of around 50mm of effective armor. Okay guys, let's continue by taking a look at two very recent battles in the ASTRON Rex medium tank. Okay guys, so here we are on safe heaven. I am playing in my ASTRON Rex. And for this setup, let's go with full gold armor for this one. We are top tier, but we are going to fight on a bit of the long range, and I really would like to have that extra shield velocity. So right now I'm in my best setup for this particular tank, as we saw in the garage, the 30 premium rounds. See what we can spot over here. There's quite a lot of heavy tanks in this game mode, I must say. So probably all of them will be down to what, D5, D6 or something, somewhere there. Let's see if we can take out some of these medium tanks and take it from there. You can see at the speed here, even it has nice top speed. We are not much faster than the WZ behind us. And we are definitely nowhere near as nimble as the E25 or the Kampfpanzer 07RH. So it has quite nice ground resistance, this tank, but yeah, it's definitely been nerfed in several spots, and the horsepower per ton definitely is one of them. I think the horsepower per ton makes a big difference for skirmish battles, but I just feel that it, yes, I can easily play this tank also with the turbocharger, but I just feel it should give make a bigger impact on the tank. Okay guys, let's see if our cameras can spot something. You can notice here the gun handling, when you don't move the turret as much, is actually quite nice. And this is where the focuses went. Nothing on that. Because if you're picking up this tank, oh nice. You can see the 4 seconds. If you pick up this tank and you try to play it without any vertical stabilizer or anything to control the gun handling, then it's utterly amazing how bad it is. Okay, that was just as an amazingly bad shot. It is surprisingly bad. It is honestly stunning how bad it is. I just had to have one game, well, already within the couple of seconds when I tested this tank out for the very first time, I was like, okay, there's absolutely need to have something to control it. And you can see the scenario here. We have the other ASTRON Rex that is doing something, and it doesn't really realize, okay, this is actually going to be quite painful. Okay, not the last shot. But many times when tanks get hit, they think like, okay, I have 7-8 seconds before I get a shot again, or maybe 10 seconds, depending on, of course, what tier you're fighting. And with the ASTRON Rex, it seems to surprise a lot of people, like, hey, I'm getting another shot. And let's say this tank had 200 alpha damage also loaded, then it would really be like, yeah, okay, doesn't really matter. But because it deals that 320, it's quite a big punch, if you ask me, as you can deliver consistently. Let me see what these guys are doing. They're quite split up. I'm a bit afraid that they will surround us, unless of course they ran away. Let's see if we can take out this guy here. Okay, that was... You can definitely see that the gun still trolls me, even I have put full focus on it. course it's mixed up with my own personal skills, so I'm playing like a big pile of something. But nevertheless, that is one of the reasons for. Oh, nice. Can we take out this guy also? Yeah, there you go. One of the reasons for why I want to go towards everything towards the gun handling. And there we go, guys. Check the reverse speed right now. We're of course reloading because we're going uphill, but we're still able to maintain at what was it, 21, just before 22 km/h reverse speed, which is quite insane. This is very nice when you want to get away. And if we had a reload time of 40 seconds, that would definitely be quite horrible for this particular tank, especially when playing this aggressive, because enemy would know that and they would be forced to attack you. But this tank has two things going for it. Of course, the slow intra, well, this, let me just check out these guys here. Nice, nice, nice. And let's finish him off. Wow, almost. Okay, that was even a high roll. That one, not bad. Where was I? It has the intra. It has the overall reload time of 30 seconds. But also, because you have 4-second intra-clip reload speed, then the enemy is not really certain how many shells you have left. It is very hard for the opponents many times to know how many do you have left. Do you have 2, 3 or 4? And because it is hard for the opponent to analyze your current clip loadout, you can take advantage of that and then make this tank feel more like a 15 seconds. Oh, nice. 15 seconds reload time. Okay, this guy after. This is the worst angling I've seen in a long time. Is it not? It's not even tracked. What is that kind of angling? Is that? Nevertheless, thank you. Okay, how many we got? We got one guy left. That's probably over the A1. Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I will accept that one. Looks like we can get our brothers in arms. It's a strange feature regarding this brothers in arms. Amazing Wargaming hasn't done anything towards it. But yeah. Let's see if we can find the last guy. What do we have? 3600 damage, 675 spotting, and 360 blocked. So the armor definitely doesn't seem to have helped us that much, but definitely the gun has. And we saw here already a lot of opportunities where we can utilize this gun, even it has that 4-second. Okay, the MX M4, can we pick him away? Because the IS definitely got hit there. Can we sneak by him? What? Okay, let's see if we can have enough HP to. Haha. There we go, RNG. Thank you. Okay, guys, 4,100 damage, 675 spotting. Nice. Let's take another game. Okay, guys, so here we are on Moravanka. I'm playing in the ASTRON Rex, and I'm playing together with Ash, who is also playing in the exact same tank. For this game here, we are same tier. Well, let's see. Yeah, I should probably go to the. It's a bit tricky for me because as you guys can see, I really want to go towards the 2 line because that's where the flag is. But I'm thinking, okay, if I want to utilize this gun, and because it has that good gun depression, I probably should go towards this place here. But yeah, I'm still missing the other part. I'm always afraid of that the enemy is going to make a super hard push towards the flag, and usually if one of the teams commits too hard over here. Okay, that was my friend here who made a shot. I was like, there's no way I hit that one. Okay, we got one miss. See if we can do some opportunities here. It's okay this place, but it's just like sometimes can get a bit too bloodthirsty. Yeah, regarding that part. So let's see, can we put a shell into him and what is that going to do? I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing, to be honest. Okay, put another one in. Nice. Okay. Well, thank you. Was nice there by Ash. You guys notice just the benefit of having 2 of these tanks. Yeah, and one for the Bisonte. Of course, I'm going to have a slight problem here soon. There we go. And small reload. But we have a lot of friendly tanks in the middle of everything. But as you just saw, as she was capable of delivering and helping me out with those tanks, or vice versa, I was able to help him out with those. In a wolf pack, then this tank is seriously has some potential, I must say. Can you imagine having 2 or 3 of these guys driving in the same tier and then challenging other medium tanks, 2 or 3 of those? They stand no chance. Okay, definitely looks like we got all of this part. Okay, this guy is definitely be dead. Can we finish him off? Yeah. Okay, now enemy is definitely escaping, so it looks we don't have that much damage, so we need to get our tank as fast as possible. Was a bad snapshot there. There we go. Pure luck. So many buildings, you can barely see anything for all of the trees and things. Okay, just making a full clip here, reload. Okay, should be safe to be here, maybe. Okay, never mind. Okay, that hurt. Okay, 422, that was luckily not the big gun. Every time I get hit by an ISU, I'm like, I have 750 imprinted in my mind and in my tank. Okay, 8-2. Okay, this game already looks like just about cleaning up. Ah! Let's see if can we put some rounds in. It's actually 8-2, but the HP difference is not that big. 1,300 this stage means the actual enemy still has a chance. Quite big one actually, if we make some big mistakes. Okay, push it to 4.6. You can see that intro clear speed is definitely holding us down for the 4 seconds. For this particular one. But right now we're using it as the single shooter. But of course looking for opportunities. Can we... gun position is definitely better when using those equipment, but it's not... I don't know, can we? Never mind. But it's not as good as many of the other tanks that are best in class regarding the gun handling. Like, well, CS52 list is definitely one of them. That is like ultimate, in my opinion, regarding making those snapshots count. Okay, what is... Nice. 341 from a medium tank. Just nuts. Okay, you can see we're already capping. I'm hoping our team will not cap this one out. I would really like to get some more damage in. We only have 2,300 at this stage. It's a bit shameful. I don't know if it's just me, but lately the game has just become 15-3, 15-3 all the time. It was 3-15. I don't know what's happening with the matchmaker during the last couple of months, but it just feels that one team more or less always completely obliterates the other team. I think it's a bit shame, if you ask me. Nevertheless, let's see if we can put some damage in. If the effort could just be put making a proper matchmaker, as for example Wargaming is putting into making the matchmaker in ranked battles. You just need to copy paste the code. They have the code. They just need to do it. Okay. Oh, that's one. That one finally. The TS5 I absolutely do not like when it's pointed right at me. And the side option, nice. But you can guys see, we just were before here at this particular spot with 2,300 damage. That was it. And suddenly we are ending with 3,800 damage, 356 spotting, and again 400 blood. Not bad. Not bad. So, the Astron Rex, what do I think of it, and most importantly, is it worth the gold? To be honest, it is a quite tricky answer, because in my opinion it all depends on how you choose to specialize and outfit this tank. To start off, the gigantic cupola, which can be seen from outer space, is not really a personal problem for me, because as I have accepted the existence of it, and I play this tank in my mind as a tank that features absolutely no armor. This tank definitely can bounce a few shots per game, but I see this as a bonus on top, but not as one of its main strengths that I want my playstyle to rely on. Initially I tried to use this tank in a similar tank sniper role as I used for the tier 9 Char Futur, but it became very quickly apparent that yes, it can work, but it just feels like such a big shame, because I just feel that this tank has so much more potential of being up close and personal rather than sniping. In my opinion, and to my surprise, then this tank seems to excel at close to mid combat, and outfitting it with full focus on its gun handling makes the tank usable to land those snapshots. Yes, they are nowhere near as precise like for example on my CS52 list, but the capability of dealing the exact same 320 alpha damage and having another shell ready in just 4 seconds seriously sounds OP if you ask me. The other thing is that its magazine reload time of around 30 seconds is not that bad, and let's say this tank had a reload speed of 40 seconds, then that would completely change this tank's worth in my eyes. But 30 seconds, it is definitely manageable as it opens up for way better opportunities during the course of the battle to, for example, being able to initiate a full reload without being forced to empty the clip beforehand. What seems quite apparent to me is that Wargaming definitely have tried to balance this tank by trying to mix up its specialities, and not only that, by slightly nerfing it in comparison to many of the other medium tanks, alongside that horrible gun dispersion and of course the intra-clip reload speed. But this part also highlights that in my eyes, to make the best use of this tank, my full focus has gone towards reducing the penalty as much as possible. And today, when the Astron Rex features a specialized crew, equipment 2.0, bounty or bond equipment, field modifications and premium food, then you can really just do that. Specialize the out of this tank. So how many facepalms would I give this tier 8 American Premium Astron Rex medium tank? Well, it receives 5 facepalms. The thing is that there's no doubt in my mind that the majority of players will be able to utilize this tank as a tank above average, because it is quite forgiving due to its autoloader magazine. But where this tank transforms from being above average to one of the best in class is when this tank has a very skilled tank commander behind the wheel who perfects right up close and personal, because the 320 alpha damage for any medium tank is fantastic in itself. And if you are able of utilizing this tank as an aggressive mid to close range tank, then the opportunities will become way more common in comparison to camping in the back. I understand the nerf strategy that Wargaming has tried for this tank, and I understand that yes, they want to make this tank good enough for people to be interested in buying it, but not being that extremely overpowered. But I honestly think that they messed it slightly up, because the very best players are now not only going to use the Borask and Projector, but in my opinion the Astron Rex is going to become one of the new tanks in this prestigious OP tank group. It is not better than the Projector or Borask, but it's just different type of tank which requires that different playstyle in comparison. In my eyes, it is a full and equal member of this prestigious group, and I honestly would not be surprised to see it as one of the newer meta tanks in game, especially in the hands of that aggressive medium tank player. Personally, I think this tank has one shell too much in its magazine, and it would still be a firm above average tank even with an alpha damage of 280. So personally, despite its horrible gun handling and the lack of opportunities of outfitting this medium tank towards being more specialized towards the light tank role, then I must say that I am very much amazed that this tank features 5 shells with 320 alpha damage, which in my eyes not only makes it fully capable of making it impact not only for random games but also in the more competitive skirmish battles. One thing is for certain, the Astron Rex has definitely in very short time become one of my top tier 8 premium medium tanks in my garage, and I'm definitely going to use this tank again. But I must again highlight that this tank will definitely require a very aggressive and challenging playstyle to make the very best use of this tank. But nevertheless, it has definitely become one of my favorite tier 8 premium tanks in the game. Okay guys, so let's finish up. I hope that this tank review was helpful towards your decision on whether you should pick the Astron Rex from the premium shop next time you have the chance. And thanks a lot for watching guys, this was my tank review number 45. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think of the American Astron Rex premium medium tank in the comments below. And as always, if you like to see more crazy content from my side, feel free to leave a like or even subscribe. It's a big thumbs up for me and I appreciate it a lot. Cheers guys, take care and see you next time.